Yo, it's Talkie Guy again. I'm making real content. Look, it's a video. Isn't that crazy? With the new season starting and stuff like that, I thought this would be a good time to kind of recap the last year of Yu-Gi-Oh! And kind of think about what it is that happened, the biggest change in the history of the game, Master Rule 4, and reviewing it and talking a little bit about it, and what are some of the positives, for example, that have come from Master Rule 4. Some of the changes that this brought about to the game, and finally I'll be talking a little bit about the negatives. There's only a few, shouldn't take that long to talk about. Starting off with the positive aspects that Master 04 brought about, well, I guess it was something fresh, it was something very different. Realistically, if you think about it, exponentially the game going on can't just have new summoning mechanics thrown on top of it every single year, or every 2 years or whatever. There has to come a point where I suppose they have to try something a little bit different that isn't just new summoning mechanics. And while Master Rule 4 did bring about new summoning mechanics, it wasn't something as simple as just, overlaying monsters or boneless synchroing. It was pretty much just the entire fundamentals of the game changing, which is part of topic number 2 that I'll go over in just a bit. My little tinfoil hat conspiracy, I just thought I'd present this to you. I genuinely believe Master Rule 4 was an attempt to curb the pendulum problem. I think that pendulums are just absolutely insane as a mechanic. Pre-Master Rule 4, the ability to just bring out these monsters recurrently every single turn. It's a free soul charge every single turn, basically. And I felt that Master Rule 4 genuinely was sort of an attempt to curb that mistake almost that they did with the pendulum mechanic. Tinfoil hat aside, the most important thing that I guess for the positives that Master Rule 4 brought about was that it was a way to slow the game down. Yeah, it didn't slow the game down. I don't know how anyone ever suggested it was going to slow the game down. There was a lot of YouTubers, for example, putting this message around saying that yes, Master Rule 4 was a good thing because it was going to slow the game down, and I just don't understand where that came from. Konami never said that was the intention behind Master Rule 4. Konami don't talk to us, so I don't really know what their intention was, to be honest. But in terms of the game design, slowing it down is absolutely not what Master Rule 4 was intended to do. If you've been playing this game for like even just a year or something, you would be able to read Konami, you would be able to make that read and be able to understand and tell that when it comes to card design and releasing new cards and stuff in a card pool, Konami are very good at breaking things very quickly. It doesn't take a genius to look at and have the foresight to look at the game and be able to see like, no, they're not going to slow the game down. There might be an initial period where link summoning won't really do anything, like for example with Pendulum. Pendulums, when they first initially came out with the Performa Pals and stuff, didn't do anything. It really sucked. Like they were terrible. Well, it was like Performa Pal Lizard Draw was like the best scale in the game or something, right? And then eventually, a couple sets later, they made actual super good pendulum support, and pendulums were just tier literal 0. Pepe is like one of the best decks in the history of this game ever in any cross-banless format. It's therefore not really that difficult to be able to see that they're probably going to do the same thing with links. Links are just as broken as pendulums if you give them the right cards. Anyone with any kind of foresight would have been able to see like all they need to do is print some link monsters that have special summon effects or that can do things when they hit the board or in unison together, work together to create some kind of combo. And you would have been able to see very clearly that slowing the game down was not the intention and that it was going to reach a point where they just had to print some amazing cards for links and it would be fucked again, basically. So I just, like, side rant aside, I just wanted to point out this slowing the game down myth that was created like last year. I don't know where that came from or why anyone thought that was going to be the case. Yes, it slowed the game down initially, but then Konami do this thing that they usually do every couple months, which is create new cards. Big if true, by the way, big if true. So the second topic is really just looking at the change. What was this change that they did with Master Rule 4? It was the biggest fundamental at the root of the game itself change that the game had ever seen. Previously, before, when they made XC summoning, when they made synchro summoning, your deck didn't just stop working after they released these things. Your deck didn't just stop working after synchro summons came out. Now, if I was to take one of my older decks, I don't know, let's say like Inferno, other than the ban list, if I was to try play that post Master Rule 4, there are just things I can't do. I just simply cannot put two XC ranked 4s on the field after Master 4. It's just not allowed, unless of course it's the wrong chain. Point is that you as a player could just pretty much ignore the previous iterations of the summoning mechanics that they made in the game. But with Master 4, they absolutely said, no, you need to follow these new rules. And you basically had to start over again. It was like riding a bike for the first time again. You had to start over and just be like, okay, well, where do we go from here? The most important change that really happened was like older decks kind of stopped working. And I think the biggest flaw and the biggest problem that they had with the change of Master 4 itself was the idea that they just didn't give enough link monsters initially. There just wasn't enough of them. Mrs. Radiant was good for one attribute. Firewall, Decode Talker, they didn't really, like, you can really take advantage of them as best as you could nowadays. The Nightmares probably should have come a little bit earlier, but it's kind of a different topic we'll talk about in just a second. The negatives. Where do we start? Where do we start? Oh, negatives. Kill me. So I think the biggest negative that I would say with this new mechanic is the idea that it feels like a different game. It really, really does feel like a different game. The way that the actual board is set up now, the mechanics itself and the learning curve involved to get into the game now is completely different to how it was 15 years ago. Obviously, I don't expect us to be playing La Jin Beatdown like someone mentioned in the comment section in the last video. Shoutouts to you, by the way. You made this comment? I made this comment. Very true that we can't expect the game to be like it was in the old days. It has to be innovation. There has to be movement forward. That's just natural when it comes to game design and progression. But some of the things that have taken place in recent years, I just think were just not really correct. I understand that they had to try something new to keep the game really fresh, and I feel like just changing the fundamentals of how the game works was not the right way to go about it. Like, for example, like having these extra monster zones, being able to put 6 monsters on the field now and stuff like that. I don't think that was really the best way to go about that. And it's really quite a shame. So this is a very subjective point. I think a lot of people would say it's okay, but a lot of people weren't really so happy with it. But then again, you do have to look at the attendance numbers of regionals and big events and stuff like that. They've been breaking records. You know, we've had like the biggest Euros, biggest European YCS, biggest regionals, biggest UK nationals. People still love the game. People are still going for it. So clearly it wasn't that bad. It's been kind of a success overall, it seems. But I don't know. I think for a lot of older players like myself who started, you know, the game way back when it like first was released, and you kind of think about what it was like to play the game as a child, it really just is so different to how it was back then. And, you know, cards just, it's just everything's so quick now. Brings me on to my next point, that's talking about the power creep itself happening too fast. I think that the game just became like, it was too quickly. Like, you know, like when you introduce like Nightmares as an engine that can facilitate crazy combos in any deck, unlike, for example, Pendulum, where they power creep the Pendulum mechanic very quickly with the release of Full Power Pepe. You know, that was all well and good, but that was just Pendulum that was getting that power creep. Now, with the Nightmares and the fact that they're so generic, this kind of allows you to do crazy things in any deck. I've literally seen Fabled doing crazy, insane U-Link boards with the Nightmares, just because of the fact that that's how generic they are. So because of how generic that power creep is, and I kind of talked a little bit about this in my last video, because of how generic that power creep is, and being able to apply it to any deck you want, that in itself just made the game speed up too quickly. And I think that, like I said, the game slowing down is kind of a myth. That wasn't really the intention behind Master 04. But I think that if they were to keep the game slow for a brief period of time, they should have took a little bit longer to release like the Nightmares. But then again, from a business perspective, I suppose they probably needed people to play their Link mechanic as fast as they could, right? I suppose that's how they looked at it. And the final point that I have to bring up, of course, is why do we have U-Links? Why was that in the game? I don't understand how that was ever allowed. Like, where did this pass through the R&D stage? How is it that anyone at the Konami design team or whatever thought to themselves, yeah, what we're gonna do is there's gonna be this like cool mechanic where you can actually like make a board of monsters that go in this shape, and then your opponent can't summon from the extra deck. Isn't that really rad? That's a little bit crazy. Yeah, but it's like so cool. Like you can do this inherent like crazy floodgate as part of our new mechanic. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna enjoy that. That doesn't sound like they're gonna have fun with that. So let me know in the comments down below if you agree with my points. Overall, Master 04 for me has been shall we say, a trying time for my interest in the game, but you might feel different. Like I said, all the records and stuff have been broken, at least on the European side. I'm sure some American records as well were broken with nationals, I think, last year. But let me know what you think about Master Rule 4. What does it mean to you 1 year later? And until next time, my name has been you. Like